Welcome back to the channel, folks, and to another battle report. This game is between me and Tom and it's being played remotely, so we're not going to have the dice rolling and the overhead camera that we've been using in the previous games. Just going to be in the old format that we have been doing for so long now, you know, with the turn by turn summary. I'm going to be using a Bulge German list and Tom is going to be using a Bulge American list, so we can see these two opposing forces on the table. Welcome back to the channel, Tom.
Thank you for having me.
First game in quite a while for me. Well, certainly remote games, and I've only had a couple since I came back. But it's good to get a remote game on the go again and figure out all the buttons and the wires and everything. But I'm going to be using a Bulge German list today, and you're going to be using a Bulge American list.
Indeed.
So, if you want to go through your list to get things started.
Yeah, so this is actually a list I've devised for my own collection, although I've been quite bad and not got around to painting it yet. But I guess it's quite a balanced formation with a mixture of 76s, jumbos, artillery and such. So the HQ is just two 75mm late Shermans. I was a bit tight for points, so that's why the HQ is just bog standard. And then the first platoon is a real mixed bag of a early 75, a jumbo 75, then two late 76s, and those 76s have been upgraded with hyper velocity ammo. And then the second platoon is a bit different, where it's got a jumbo 76 and three late 76s, and they've all been upgraded with hyper velocity ammo. And so I guess the idea between that is that one is a bit of a holding platoon and the other is a bit of a flying platoon. Because originally I had both the platoons identical, but I felt that there wasn't a good concentration of high power anti-tank, which I think sometimes the Americans suffer from. Then four Chaffies. I think these are the darlings of the American Bulge book. I've not played with them. I think if you know how to use them very well, I think they can be very powerful. But I think it's a bit like the Puma problem. They've got thin armour and a really big gun, and you want to use them as battle tanks, and they're not really battle tanks. And then to round off the formation, three mortars. And then in support, I've got a Greyhound patrol, just a standard 3-point patrol, a battle-weary rifle platoon of 17s, 2 bazookas, and LMG, and then finally 3 priests. And then that's my list.
Giving them the HVAP, I think, is really important with the Bulge Germans that are going about now. Like front armour 10 at long range, for instance, with anti-tank 12. You don't stand a chance. At least with 13 you do.
Yeah.
Now I'll go through my list, but it's not a big list, so I think you should have space, especially with your Chaffies and their speed, maybe to do a bit of manoeuvring and get my guys in the flanks. But we'll go over and do my list, folks. I'll go through it with you, and then we're going to roll off. What you're choosing manoeuvre for your plans, and I'm going to choose attack because my brain can handle the idea of attacking with this list, and that's about it, to be honest. So we'll roll off for that as well, folks, when we come back, and after the list review, get on to the game itself. Here is the German list for today, a heavy tank hunter formation based around Jagdpanthers. So you can see you've got a company HQ of 2 Jagdpanthers, a platoon of 3 Jagdpanthers, and then a platoon of 3 Stooks. Now these guys are all careful, confident veteran, though the Stooks are fearless. So it's a heavy hitting formation in terms of the anti-tank on the Panthers, and whilst the Panthers have got sort of good medium range armour, at 9, they're not assault tanks. Like you can't just charge them straight at the enemy. and expect him to just bounce everything. So you're going to have to take your chances with these guys, and it's a small formation, so it might fold quite quickly. You could reduce the HQ to 1 tank and free up about, I think maybe about 13-14 points to spend elsewhere on support, or maybe on another unit, maybe anti-aircraft, to stay within the formation. But I like personally a HQ of 2 because it's a bit more resilient, because when it goes you've lost a platoon. If you've got 1 tank gets destroyed, you've lost a platoon, which immediately reduces the endurance of your formation for other casualties. In support of that, we have a platoon of armoured Ardennes Panzer Grenadiers. These guys are reluctant, aggressive, reluctant, trained. They have got half-tracks and MG bases with 2 Panzerfausts. That's the only infantry in here. Now, they're very cheap in points, which is why they're here. But with them being reluctant, we have to wait and see what they actually do during the game, because infantry will always end up getting pinned at some point, especially if you're aggressive, because you're going to get hit easily by artillery. And then you've got 2, 3, 4 armoured cars to support, a pair of them. For that, the points I spent on them, I could have got the light armoured car patrol, but I'm going to try these because I've just painted them. And then in supporting them all, we have 3 flame hetzers. Now, I don't use flame tanks a lot, certainly not like the flame half-tracks, because round here, you know, if you turn up with a flame weapon of any kind, unless it's a crocodile, everybody just turns every gun to them and destroys them. But I'm going to give them a go. They've got front armour 7, which means it takes serious anti-tank to deal with them. If you're dealing with them, you're not dealing with the Jagdpanthers or the Stuks. It means I've got no artillery, which means no smoke, and I could probably do with smoke for these guys just to get them past any particular danger points. But we'll see how the flame hetzers do to see if they're a worthwhile addition. They're 9 points for, let me think, I think they're careful, reluctant, veteran, I believe. So they're half decent tanks in themselves. So there you go, folks. It could be a glass hammer, but I'm here to try it out, get my new tanks on the table as well, nicely painted, Jagdpanthers up beside some of the earliest kits ever painted, the Stugs, and let's see how they get on. Today's mission is escape, with Tom defending and me attacking. Now you can see the objective deployment zones are quite straightforward in this mission. They are a bit different from the standard end-to-end kind of layouts, in that the defender's deployment zone is 8 inches back from the centre line, and the attacker is quite far forward to the centre line, being only 8 inches back again. But importantly, the defender's reserves are coming on from behind the attacker. You can see the attacker's deployment zone is like a band, then there's a band of no man's land. Now these reserves are immediate reserves too. Another difference compared to normal missions is the defender goes first in this game. And one of the significant points of that is that it is possible, using the victory conditions, on the 6th turn for the defender to win without the attacker having had a 6th turn. So it's a mission that places the attacker under a lot of pressure. It's very difficult to sit still because you need to move forward. You've got 1 turn less than a normal game to get within 8 inches off an objective if you're not going to just take the objective, and you need that extra time. And also they have to move forward and try and get themselves into some kind of cover, because the defender is going to be arriving from reserves behind them, hitting them in their weak armour. If they've got any static artillery, that artillery is going to have to sit there and get swamped by the defender's reserves. So it's quite a tricky mission for the attacker, in my opinion, and as an attacker it's probably the mission that I would least want to play. So let's see what happens. So folks, here is the mission and deployment. Tom decided to defend this back half here, the mission being escape, and therefore I'm attacking from here. Now, objectives: Tom put one here as far back in a good defensive position as possible, and I put one here as far away from that as I could. That was about the only overriding factor for me. You can see one ambush, by the way, Tom has got his full sort of 76mm hard-hitting heavy HVAP platoon in ambush. He's got priests here, HQ guarding that objective, his infantry around here. He doesn't have to worry about templates because I've not brought any artillery. His ranged in marker is currently on that house there, but you know, it's not going to stay there obviously. And he's got his scouts down that side to watch for any rushes that I put up there. And in that respect, I'll just go in a bit closer. I've got my Panzer Grenadiers and my 234s. They've got the back to the wood, which will give them some protection against reserves, but I reckon if the reserves arrive straight away, they'll be shooting all my Jagdpanthers in the back. So I've just got a big lump here ready to try and move forward. There's nothing else you can do in this game and hope you don't get shot in the back. So HQ, platoon of 3, 3 flame hitzers, 3 Stoogs, ready to deal with anything that at least shoot back whilst I'm moving forward if any reserves do come on. So we'll tidy up the objective markers, folks, and come back at the end of American turn 1, because the defender goes first, remember. Yank turn 1. So Tom decided he's not sure if he's going to be getting reserves this turn, decided don't pop the ambush, and he didn't get reserves, so that was a good call. In terms of movement, his recon are just positioning themselves to be a nuisance to any attacks either along the road by dashing or around here in this open terrain by dashing. So he's left the Greyhound out, push back the dash, mortar jeep and machine gun jeep. Everything else stayed put, and only firing was the priests, who, I'll put a marker down, the only thing that was really visible to them was using the infantry in this field, and the ranged in here. Lots of targets in there. Got a first attempt, lots of targets, but only one hit on the second in command, and it's saved. So, not too eventful for the Yanks this turn, but when those Shermans start to arrive in the Chaffies, there'll be dust flying everywhere. So on to me for German turn 1. German turn 1. Start over here. I've moved up half tracks and zoom in, folks. Half tracks and armoured cars. Trying to have a go at these guys. Push down that flank, and then here I managed a blitz and then a tactical with these guys. They failed the blitz. That's HQ. The platoon passed the blitz. So I'm just kind of trying to use the shadow of this hill to a degree. The reserves can still come on up here. I've repositioned the Stoogs a bit so they can shoot up anything that does eventually come around there. And in terms of shooting, these managed to get 4 hits on that one guy. So that was 8 save rolls needed. He only failed 1, so he nearly made it. And then over there, I just managed to get hits with MGs on the Greyhound and a Jeep, which is in here, and the Jeep passed it, saved, the Greyhound just shrugged it off. So I'm moving forward. Lots of things are probably likely to start happening here in terms of ambushes and such likes. So over to Tom for his turn 2. American turn 2. So this turn the ambush was popped, but no reserves. The infantry unpinned. In terms of movement, that was it really. And then in terms of shooting, however, unfortunately, these guys got 4 hits and 4 kills. None of them made their save. They would needed a 5 or a 6, and all the firepowers were passed on a 3-up, which isn't surprising. So there's now only 1 Jagdpanther left. Never mind getting shot in the back, guys. Getting shot in the front is pretty nasty too. If it had been no HVAP on these guys, 2 of them would still have failed their save, but there might be still 2 of the dead ones left alive. And then to continue the dead eye shooting, the Greyhound got 2 hits and 2 kills on those armour cars over there. So there's not very much left, guys. We'll see if there's any point in continuing and come back with German turn 2. Hold on a minute. So in one turn 6 out of the 7 new vehicles that I've just spent ages painting have been destroyed. Lady Luck, why do you hate me so much? So German turn 2. First of all, there was not really any motivation, so just movement. So I brought the Stoogs along to join in the fight. Whatever comes in at the back, they're going to have to come in and do its worst. They're needed up here. The Hitzers moved up to do some flaming, and my infantry debussed and moved up to do some assaulting. So in terms of shooting, the Stoogs all missed. The Jagdpanther got 2 hits. Now because my flame Hitzers were up here and the jumbo was here, I didn't have line of sight to the jumbo, so the 2 hits went on them and I passed the firepower because it was just straight to firepower. The Hitzers managed to get 3 hits and 2 dead. And then over there I did some shooting with Faust that missed and then ran in for the assault. Took 3 hits in counterfire but saved them all, and then clobbered it with a Faust. So that was the end of that, because the mortar jeep that can't assault enemy, it was dead. It got killed by machine gun fire. So those guys are at least moving up. I am sort of moving up over here, and the reserves are about to arrive, at least 1 platoon. Now, one point I should have made where the shooting, there was 4 hits. I went across this platoon and the HQ platoon because I joined in thinking I stood a better chance if I didn't have multiple saves on individual tanks. So that's cup half full approach. The cup was very much half empty, however, as every one of them failed. If there'd been everyone failing on 3 tanks, I would have had 2 left alive. So in terms of my formation status, I've got HQ, 3 Stoogs, so 2 platoons. American turn 3, so the infantry are still pinned. The jeep passed its last stand, and that's backing off just now to get within command distance for a reroll with the company commander. Reserves, 3 dice, only 1 came in, and the chaffies came in here. So in terms of shooting, we might as well start with the chaffies. Stabilisers, so 6 dice, but range and stabilisers meant they need 6s, so no hits there. These 2 surviving 76s are still dishing out the damage. 3 hits, 2 kills, and a bail on the flame Hitzers. And then there was an attempted smoke barrage from the priest to cover all of these guys to the front. That didn't range in, because it was called in by a trained observer. And then the jeep managed to get 1 hit on these infantry, but no kill. It was a save. So the Yanks are doing fine. Unless there's some kind of miracle, they just got to get the reserves up in time to finish me off, basically. Otherwise, I've just got to try and find some way of holding on. German turn 3. In terms of motivation, he didn't get back in, but he stayed. He's reluctant, but his last stand's good. And then in terms of movement, this red house has got 4 bases infantry, and there's 3 behind it, and then the half tracks are here. In terms of shooting, those half tracks murdered the poor wee jeep. In terms, 1 Stug moved over there, and then in terms of shooting, the Stugs got 2 hits. The jumbo laughed, and so did the 76mm. But then the company command managed to get 2 hits again, a 5 and a 6, needing 5s, which is pretty damn good, and managed to kill both of them. The jumbo could manage a potential bail, but they both didn't. Well, it didn't roll, and the firepowers were good. So this platoon's gone. And then I shooted and scooted anybody that did not fire, which makes me a little bit harder to hit, but these tanks can just roll on up, use the stabilisers, and possibly finish off the formation. So I'm kind of pushing towards there, but there's going to be a wall of American armour coming in behind me. US turn 4. In terms of motivation, the infantry didn't unpin. So they've, as you see, they've kind of been shuffling back. They want to protect that in case there's some miracle over here. Only 1 reserve came in, so they've launched up that flank there. those Shermans, and then the Chaffies moved up. And the Chaffies had a good bit of shooting. They managed to kill one and bail one, needing 6s out of 6 shots. That wasn't too bad. The artillery did a lot of damage. It killed 2 infantry at the back of the house and 1 infantry in the house because they ranged in first time on target, and also managed to kill and bail half-track, and the Shermans also did more damage to the half-tracks. Half-tracks are pretty well smashed up. So, not too bad a turn. These guys may well be motivating for the game next turn, and the infantry, they're reluctant, remember, and need 5 to unpin to keep any chance of moving forward. German turn 4. This guy didn't get back in. Oops, the flamer all run away. The Stug did get back in, so there was no check there, and the reluctant infantry unpinned. Then in terms of movement, Stug's passed a blitz to get up on the hill to fire down here, and company command stayed put. The infantry moved out to get that tank in the flank. Oh, by the way, the half-tracks legged it. They ran away. And in terms of shooting, the Stugs only got 1 hit and ended up as a bail. I was hoping to maybe deal with the Chaffies and then, who knows, winging a prayer over there. The HQ, needing 6s, fired at the American HQ and missed. And then over here, I got 1 hit with Faust from the attacking guys and got a bail. Went in for the assault, won the assault. He broke off to there. He didn't bog down, and I've consolidated like this. I suppose there's a chance of something happening there. And here I've just got to try to hold on. Next turn is the vital turn, really. American turn 5. So in that turn, infantry unpinned. So Tom's moving them over to watch that objective, bringing over more support as well. And then over here, Chaffee's barreling up, using the stabilisers, and these guys, one staying put, another one's moving up to get shots on here. And this has kind of ended it, because they got just the 1 hit and a kill. Those guys, we stopped rolling the dice. They got 3 hits altogether, but the first one from a 76 went through, killed it, and that breaks the formation. So we're just going to call it there, folks. That wasn't really so much a Jagdpanther battle as a Stug battle, but we're going to have a recap, so we'll come to that now. Before we go to a recap with myself and Tom, I've had a wee think about the game and anything that I could share. So the important thing about this mission was the ambush, and I kind of walked right into it. But it's a game where if you don't keep moving forward, you get caught by the reserves coming on behind you. And if you do move forward, you risk the ambush. And it's a tricky compromise. So I thought I'm just going to push on. If I do get ambushed, there's every chance I will make some saves or some firepowers will be failed. It didn't work out that way. But on another day, it might have worked out okay. And then Tom would have been under pressure. So there's a good balance in the game in that respect. As far as the other side of the table goes, I put my armour cars over there to try and push around the side. I could have had them blocking the ambush from the wood, which would have helped keep my Jagdpanthers alive. And on the other side, well, I was 1 cross-check, as it turned out, away from getting the win. If Tom's commander, when he broke off, had failed his cross-check, he would have been captured. And then I would have been able to hold on to that objective. I don't think he could have kicked me off. So even in a desperate situation, guys, where you've got almost nothing left, if you've got something left and there's an opening, you can always still go for it. Right, Tom, there you go. For us, that was actually quite a quick game. Not a lot to do in terms of deployment because we didn't have very much, and not too many turns either. We actually didn't expect this video to be worth sharing at all, because 4 out of 5 Jagdpanthers dying, and effectively, in real terms, by the end of turn 1, you know, what happens next? 4 out of 5 main tanks are dead. I thought that was going to be it, but the game did drag on a wee bit because you found that a wee bit more difficult to get shots on target and spent a bit of time killing flame tanks rather than hitting my core formation, but that was well worth it in the end as it turned out. But anyway, how did you feel it went for your own list?
Yeah, I thought it went very well. I made a kind of last minute change. So usually I was going to go in with symmetrical Sherman platoons, but then I made an altercation where I could concentrate more high power anti-tank in one platoon. And that's what proved to be a bit of a difference there. That, you've got that really devastating ambush that you can use, or in a more open play game, you can use that to concentrate against Tigers, where your other 75mm stuff can concentrate on lighter armor stuff. And so, yeah, and the Chaffies kind of came to the rescue as well, getting in some cheeky flank shots that proved quite devastating. Again, I rolled quite lucky on the firepower test, so there wasn't a lot of respite for the Germans to redeploy effectively. And then my priests managed to do some damage to some infantry, which I think, given the cheap nature of German infantry in late war, I think American artillery is going to prove very effective at trying to counter that. Although your infantry nearly stole the game at the end, so very close, very close.
Well, I think for me, it's like when you get ambushed, sometimes you just got to take the pain. But there, the pain was just full on, and as you said, the firepowers are all past, so there was no coming back from it. The only thing I would have said I should have done differently in that game for definite was put the armoured cars out in front and bomb it up to the wood. But I wanted to put a two-pronged attack, because if you rely entirely on one attack and your opponent is getting the reserves all flying in behind you, then there's every chance you're just going to get sandwiched on one side. So that's why I had to keep going for my kind of a Hail Mary attack. But it was disappointing, the Jagdpanthers getting killed right away, because we never got to see what they could do. We thought the game wasn't going to be usable. If it effectively ended in turn 2, we wouldn't have shared it. But it went on a bit, and there was a bit of tension, shall we say. The Jagdpanther HQ at least got its revenge, and very nearly potentially won the game if it managed to kill the American HQ at long range, but it run out of 5s and 6s by that point. So hopefully it's been an okay and enjoyable watch for the viewers, even though it was a bit more of an infantry and Stug attack rather than a Jagdpanther attack. But it'll maybe at the very least help people think about how they would use Jagdpanthers. More than likely you're going to see them in defensive lists rather than in attacking lists. But even if you do, folks, if you don't shoot and scoot out of danger from your firing position, your front armour 9 isn't something that you can rely on too much. So you've got to have a good balance in your list to make sure they don't fall victim to a blast off high velocity armour piercing. Anyway, thanks for the game, Tom. It was a bit of a kicking for me all round, so I'm not going to thank you for that, but you were due to give me a kicking anyway, so that evens things up a bit. And thanks to all the guys who've watched today. Thanks to all the subscribers who are out there. And if you'd like to subscribe, please do so to help us build the channel and bring this kind of content to other Flames of War fans. And if you hit the bell button, folks, we'll definitely see you on the next one. Cheers, Tom.
All right, see ya.